your breadth of experience. You have video coordinator in Providence on your resume. You worked under Frank Dunphy, and you were also a head coach at a junior college. How has that breadth of experience helped you to become the coach you are today?
Yeah, I think it's given me a lot of different experiences to see, kind of how a program operates, from, everything that goes on behind the scenes, I started out as a student assistant coach at William Penn, and then I was a grad assistant, video coordinator, assistant coach. I've been a head coach. So wearing all those different type of hats, you kind of see everything that goes on within a program. And so, I think that kind of eliminates maybe blind spots that some people that have only worked, in one position maybe wouldn't see. So I really appreciate all the experiences that I've had, but that's really benefited me, I think, throughout the course of my career.
Now that you're kind of fully in Iowa City, a few months into it, I guess, what do you kind of take away knowing that kind of came full circle, that you always said, like, I was born a Hawkeye, but now I'm actually a Hawkeye? I guess what you just kind of mean to you now that you're here and really coaching?
It's kind of different because I feel like I've moved from, a job to another job and now to another job that it's still the job. And so sometimes you just immerse yourself in the job. And I haven't really completely reflected on that. There's some days where it kind of hits me a little bit, and so I'll tell you a story. A couple weeks ago, I was like working out and I went down into Carver and I was running the stairs in Carver, and it really it hit me like, you're running stairs in Carver Hawkeye Arena. This is where, as a kid growing up, this is where I wanted to play. I wasn't good enough to play here, but just kind of those type of moments make me really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to work here.
Do you have an early Hawkeye memory? Anything that stands out as like either the first game you went to or anything like that?
Just a lot of just watching games with my parents, honestly. Just growing up, basketball, football. Anytime the Hawkeyes were playing, we were tuned in. So that's, no specific memory, but, just that overall memory.
Who's your favorite Hawkeye?
Man, my favorite Hawkeye. There were a lot of different ones, I think, kind of around the age that I was, probably, I remember like BJ Armstrong, I remember Dean Oliver, like there were those types. I saw Tim Dwight run at the state track meet when I was young, and he was probably, junior in high school, and I was like, oh wow, that's a dude. So he was one I always really enjoyed watching as well.
And you just turned 50.
What's that?
Tim just turned 50.
Well, I just turned 45, so I'm getting old too.
How often do you run those stairs?
That was a one and done deal. I went back to the treadmill. It wasn't easy. Yeah, it was pretty tough. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go a full circuit all the way down, all the way around, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I got about halfway around. It literally took me like 30 minutes, and I was like, there's no AC in there, it gets hot. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna fight this one another day.
Through all the different jobs, was Iowa like in the light at the end of the tunnel, or were you just kind of thinking, I'm at this job, I'm going to think about this job, I'm not thinking about the future?
Yeah, when I was first in the coaching profession, I was kind of told, hey, make the big time where you're at. So like, I tried to just immerse myself in the job that I was in. Throughout the course of my career, like people would ask, like, what's your end goal? And I don't know that I really had an end goal. I wanted to have an opportunity to be a head coach, and I got to do that at the junior college level. But as you kind of move through, those different spots, those different jobs, I hoped that at some point I was going to get the opportunity to coach basketball at the highest level of Division I, and I never would have dreamed that it would have worked out to be at Iowa. So, I'm just really fortunate for the opportunity here, and I'm excited about it.
Can you give us an insight on how Coach McCollum first kind of hired you? Was it at Drake or was it before that?
It was at Drake.
Okay.
Yep. He and I had some contact the last couple years, just about random things. I sat next to him at a couple recruiting events, and we just had conversation. I was the head coach at Indian Hills, and my phone rang, and he just said, hey, do you have any interest to get back to Division I level? And I wasn't really thinking about, going to Indian Hills and being there, 10 months and then leaving. That wasn't really in my plan. But I knew in my head there was a couple jobs like here in the state that I would leave for. And so, you know, the opportunity to work for him and then be at Drake, like those were two things that, you know, as my family and I talked about it, my wife and I talked about it and evaluated the situation, it was something I felt like we had to do.
As you guys,
Are you the most starstruck guy on staff when it comes to like looking around and seeing Carver and being here? I mean, Coach Ben too obviously grew up a Hawkeye fan, so it's like you both kind of look around and think, hey, we're Iowa coaches now.
Yeah, I think, you know, him and I know, you know, Iowa basketball from just, you know, being little guys growing up. You know, I know in his press conference he talked about how, you know, he went to camp here, and I have memories of being at camp here too. So just from those experiences and the length of time that I've, you know, been associated or been around, been a Hawkeye fan, you know, I think him and I probably both have that, definitely, yeah.
as you guys wait for Alvaro to get here, how do you kind of mentally work him into the plans? Like, how does?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think for Alvaro, it's, you know, working from afar, watching him, trying to help him navigate maybe some situations that he goes through there, if he's, you know, playing well or not playing well, and how to handle those situations. I think we were able to give him some structure here, you know, in the last 2 weeks that he was here with us before he did leave. And so it really helped us, I think, as we plan for him going forward on how, you know, we're going to be able to best utilize him. So I think, you know, we've had that plan, but then also having him not here has also given us an opportunity to coach some of these other guys and put those guys in positions as well, so that when we add the group back together as a whole, I think we'll be stronger.
Yeah.
After walking into this job with only one guy on the roster, I guess, how nice is it to actually be coaching basketball again after trying to basically obtain a roster over the last 3 months?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part, because when this whole thing happens, you're like in scramble mode to try to put together a roster and, you know, retain any of the guys that you can retain, but then you're also have, you know, everything from a personal standpoint that you're trying to navigate. So you feel like the pressures of all these different things at once. And then when you actually get to come in here for an hour a day or hour and a half a day or whatever it is and coach basketball, you're like, oh yeah, this is why we do this, you know. And just being around the guys and interacting with the guys, we have guys that you know, are great to hang out with and be around. So that's what makes it really enjoyable.